Guys, we have another podcast with us this weekend, and we've got Suresh Balaji with us. He's based out of Singapore. Quickly, let's just get an intro for this guy.
Hey, great. Hey, Rohan. Thank you very much for having me. I've been quite looking forward to having this conversation with you. My background, I'm a marketer by trade. I do multiple things. I'm a CMO for a large global bank. I set up the world's first marketing association focused on Web3 called W3MA. We are still in beta stage and we will go live sometime soon. We have a few members who've just joined in stealth mode. I'm also a non-executive director in a Blackstone invested marketing services company. And I'm in the process of setting up a Web3 venture studio shortly, right? So multiple things, but my day job is in a bank, global bank. My nighttime, I have conversations with cool people like you, dude.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you, man. You know, I've got this entire podcast designed to ask about brands and the Web3 marketing spectrum. But since, it just struck me that you're coming from this banking background. Are people afraid of these new tech that's coming in? There's a scenario in my head where, my niece and nephew, 9 and 14, they might grow up and get to a particular age where they can have a bank account, but they're already sitting on considerable assets, digital assets. Is that like a fear factor for these guys? Like the new Gen Alpha might not need bank accounts?
Well, it's fascinating, right? Great question to ask. Okay. And really good question to ask, right? Fantastic. So we saw this happening over the last 15 or 20 years, right? I think if you look at it, the neobanks, fintechs, etc., the original disruptors who came in, and the whole conversation was, will disruptors get distribution before incumbents get innovation? That was the core of the question. I remember going to A16Z in the early 2010s to have conversations with them about, hey, what are you investing in? What are you looking at? What's happening in the world of payments? And of course, West Coast always is sort of ahead on the curve when it comes to trying to figure out what's coming through. And
the heart of tech.
Absolutely, right? And it still is, right? Heart of Techland, heart of Web3 land, heart of everything.
That's debatable,
man. Well, let's discuss that in a minute, okay? Once I finish this sort of your banking question. And I think what we saw was, of course, all of the distributors didn't manage to get distribution. And over a period of time, what has happened is fintech has become an enabler for banking, right? So if you if you come to Singapore, if you go to Hong Kong, if you go to Korea, if you go to the US, the incumbents have figured out how to manage seamless customer experiences, figure out how onboarding should happen, figured out that they can get licenses for virtual banks themselves. So at this point in time, I think UK is a case in point. Someone was telling me that, the neobanks have been around for 14, 15 years, but the combined market share is 4%, right? I think it still needs, and in the wake of the FTX drama, you can see that, everyone loves decentralization. Everyone likes anonymity. Everyone likes everything up until the time someone owes you money. Right. So now everyone's running to, hey, can SEC help us? Can CFTC help us? Can regulators help us? I am absolutely pro-regulation. I think decentralization works at a certain level. I think you need institutions, industry bodies, property rights, all of that baked into industrial policy before
there needs to be a balance.
Yeah. I more than a balance, dude. I think we need fundamental foundations, right, to get to it. And I think this will come, this entire FTX saga will see to it that we will take a safe path for your niece and nephew.
Definitely, that's there. But I did sort of feel that there is this threat of, liquidity being sucked out of the banking networks onto the exchanges. And this is something that actively they've tried to prevent by blocking off, payments onto anything related to blockchain. So even us guys, for example, where we're into education, which is because we've got blockchain in our names, sometimes we do run into, troubles here and there. So that is something that tells me that definitely there is some worry on that side.
If you think about what do regulators actually want, right? I've met regulators in my career all my life. I started my career in pharma, right? If you think banking is regulated, you can imagine somebody putting some vaccines into babies' bodies, right? That's even more regulated. So I come from the world of pharma. I think great regulators always look at how do we ensure that customers are protected, right? I think this is one of the biggest challenges of Web3. I think the fundamental premise on which we set up the Web3 Marketing Association was, the whole idea of information asymmetry, right? When there is information asymmetry, that is when bad actors have a go at things. So the most important thing that regulators do is to ensure that they balance the playing field to ensure there's no information asymmetry, right? So if that happens, it'll be better. So at this point in time, I think there are more people who don't know about what blockchain is than who know about what blockchain is. So which is why scrutiny, and I think there should be, right?
I mean, we're getting sidetracked over there with the opening question itself. Sort of getting back to what we discussed talking about initially was, so currently speaking, back about the brands and advertising, what are the brands do you think who've got it right at the moment? Who can marketers and brand managers be looking up to at this point in time?
Well, I think the two that stand out are Nike and Starbucks for me for two very different reasons, right? Nike, of course, they did two things, right? The first thing was when they bought 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, they already figured out that there is an opportunity for them to create a parallel business stream. It is truly playing into the original Satoshi Nakamoto paper, right? Essentially, if somebody asked me, great, Satoshi Nakamoto's paper, can you explain it to me in one sentence? I think the one sentence definition of the condensation of reductive condensation of Satoshi Nakamoto's paper is he or they or whoever, right, basically said that everyone can truly own a piece of the internet, right? That's what it is, right? So this complete human genius that we can own a piece of the internet. And what Nike have done is therefore gone ahead and everything that 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗃 built, which was the ability to own digital goods, which is branded digital goods, has been the big leap over there. And $160 million of revenue, right? Phenomenal out of nothing. If you really imagine this market didn't exist and they landed up creating a market, which is fabulous. Now, as of last week, they launched
all this within 2 years.
Within 2 years, right? Probably within the last year, right? And then last week they launched 𝗏𝗏, which is sort of a parallel thing. Well, from Nike Virtual Labs, working through how will they connect real physical goods, tokenization of it, how do they launch all of their Web3 stuff from there. I think both of them will run in parallel. I think both of them one is going down the path of digital goods for your avatars, etc., etc. The other one is going down the path of, hey, can we create Nike connection between Nike? I mean, phygital is a funny word, right? Can they connect, physical and digital? What's the way that they can take that leap? I think Nike is getting it absolutely right. The other one who's getting it, phenomenally right is Starbucks. Essentially, if you look at the fundamental premise of Web3, right? I call I have this model in my head. I call the 3C model. Okay, the 3C model is very simple. The first C is communities. The second C is creativity. The third C is a commercial model, right? So anyone with a CRM base already has a community. Anyone with a loyalty program already has a community. So you can call them your audience, but you can expand that and create, instead of community of one, if you can take a leap and create community of many, there is going to be much more to be done. And I don't want to go deep into the Starbucks one, but I think at a very high level, Starbucks Odyssey, thinking of how can they actually tokenize their loyalty program? How can they get it to a place where maybe there's a secondary market for it? Maybe there's a liquidity pool of it. All of that stuff is mind-blowing. Just to think of what they're going to do. And they picked Polygon to work with. I think it's just phenomenal. So these two brands, two of my favorite brands, you're wearing a Nike shirt. I just had a Starbucks coffee this morning, but I can see that these
this
two.
Is on purpose. This is on purpose.
You knew I was going to say Nike, wasn't it? It was a subliminal messaging to me. Well done. So these two guys are right.
Another thing about Nike that hits me is, it's no longer a brand campaign or an advertising campaign. They're literally reimagining the brand for Web3. And a lot of the brands heading into this space needs to have, more boardroom meetings as to what to do in these spaces rather than leave it out to the marketing team, because this is a much bigger, much broader playground.
I'm so glad you said that, right? And I think the ability, this is where communities, creativity, and the last one is the commercial model, the ability to integrate Web3 deep into commercial models, and ability to integrate blockchain deep into commercial models is where the unpack has to be, which is the next $1 trillion, right? It is not, shit coins. It is not, brand experiences in Decentraland. It is actually deep within the business model. Can they actually implement it and unpack it and take the technology and utilize it for where there are trust gaps? I think that's where the big leap is going to be. So you're spot on.
Definitely. And the way you put it, the 3Cs model, this sort of thinking needs to, come down to the way advertising agencies have been functioning over the past decade. These guys have seen some huge declines in revenue because digital has taken over. Small scale agencies can, do much more effective and bespoke work for major brands. But when you're getting into Web3 and the Metaverse, you need the team that the agency has. You need that structure. You need that infrastructure in place. So do you think communities, advertising agencies should be restructuring themselves? Should they look at CaaS, community as a service, as an offering model?
Well, fascinating. I never thought of community as a service, right? But it's, I think, something to think about and ponder about. But I think, okay, let's talk about the agency networks for a second, right? And I think you're right that, the agency model itself is under tremendous pressure. It's getting disrupted pretty quickly. Accenture Song is now one of the biggest agencies on the planet, right? It came out of Accenture, EY, KPMG, all of them are biting from one angle when they're talking directly to the CEOs. On the other end, small agencies who can manage communities very quickly, to be able to launch NFT campaigns very quickly, or to be able to do, stuff really fast, are emerging all over the place. And I think the big agency networks are definitely under severe pressure, right? But the opportunity, nevertheless, is, I think many of them still have positive cash flow. They have a lot of cash. They will go through buying some of these.
If they keep firing people, they'll maintain the positive cash flow. Something else needs to happen as well.
Something else has to happen, right? So I think there'll definitely be, Rohan, there'll be a big moment of consolidation in this space, right? These small agencies will get bought out. Some small agencies will become large. And I think where it gets really interesting is, I think there are Web2 brands wanting to go Web3, and there are Web3 native brands wanting to go down the chain, right? So I'll explain what I mean by that. So of course, Nike and Starbucks wanting to go Web3, right? Which is great because they figured out that their business model has to expand. On the other hand, if you think about all these NFT, all the PFP art, generative art, NFTs, etc. Now they are scratching their head saying, what is the utility? What does it actually mean when they say, what is the utility? They want to try and figure out, are they going to token gate to a IRL event? Are they going to token gate to access to some freebies? Are they going to connect your NFT for a limited edition merchandise? All of that is going the other way, right? So 𝗕𝗿𝗄𝗃 burger and whatever else, or Moonbird's going CCO so that other people can use it on brands and on shirts and caps and whatever, is where I think both of these things are coming together. So the point I always make is, see, Web3 businesses are not just going to remain Web3 businesses forever, right? I think Web3, we are all human beings living in the real world. Web 0, 1, 2, 3, all of this will coexist. Now, the ability for businesses to go either ways and to try and create real value is where this is. So I meet a lot of startups and they talk to me about, hey, yeah, we are a blockchain startup. I'm like, okay, that's okay, but what are you actually doing, right? What's your actual
problem are you solving?
Exactly. What human problem are you solving, or what business problem are you solving? I think that is where I think Web3 will mature. And I think many of these agencies, many of these startups, many of these companies will say, okay, what gap are we actually filling in the marketplace? It'll be fascinating to see how this evolves.
Yeah. So in my experience, working at 𝗪𝗪 and Dentsu for extensive periods of time, I realize, A, these guys have a global presence. This is one of the plus points that they have. And B, the way they operate and the way they maintain like the studios need to be redefined. From your Photoshop experts, you need to get into Unreal experts and hire like batches of them and execute storytelling through them, because to deliver on a global scale, I still think nobody can match some of these agencies out there,
I agree.
irrespective of how good and bespoke that they can get.
I agree. And great brands are great brands because they have consistency. They have the same insight. They understand fundamental human truth. They're able to scale fast enough. They're able to ride on globalization. They're able to, the world is flat for many of these organizations, right? I think the ability for them to use it. I think this is where big agencies will figure it out. I mean, 𝗕𝗂𝗁 at one point in time when they became part of the Publicis network, right? And then Publicis Group went and bought Sapient. No one ever thought, why would an advertising agency be buying a digital transformation company? And Sapient are hardcore digital transformation, right?
Yeah.
And then the ability for them to cross-sell this stuff has been phenomenal. Same thing for WPP. WPP they had this studio called 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏. I know their global CEO really well, and a year ago he decided to set up a metaverse foundry to help brands take the leap. Same for S4 Capital. Their brands are they do loads of work on Unreal and Unity and all of those. It's incredible that some of them have already taken the leap, but are they scaling it soon enough? Are they scaling it on all markets? Don't know yet, right?
I mean, Dentsu, I remember from some of the videos that were lying in the office, these guys were already doing VR-led campaigns in the early 2000s with NEC handsets.
Yeah.
And that was phenomenal. I mean, this is way back before the rest of the world even had 3G. So, yeah.
Japan, man, oh my word. I mean, the entire meme culture, the entire avatar culture, the entire manga-led, stuff in the zeitgeist is completely insane, right? I think even if you look at a lot of stuff, a lot of new NFTs that are coming through, Renga, Azuki, all of those are all born out of that sort of manga culture, right? If you see movies like Akira or Cowboy Bebop and stuff like that, you can see the depth and the breadth of thinking over there to say, wow, storytelling at the core of it. And if you can create that storytelling in sort of the sci-fi storytelling in a 3D world, it's very easy leap to take. If you have creativity and if you have the technology and if you have the kind of a audience, you can easily take the leap. So not surprising.
Yeah, I mean, storytelling is literally the only thing in the campaign that has a shelf life. Everything else can be replicated.
Spot on.
So, I mean, you briefly mentioned AI and, image generators. How much influence are they going to have on brands in the coming years? Is this going to be the staple go-to? Are creatives going to get fired and they're just hiring prompters now? I mean, what do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years? Because just to give you a little background there, I've been playing around a lot with Midjourney. I think Midjourney is on version 4 right now. And I mean, version 10, which might be around by the end of next year, would literally be generating 3D environments.
That's right.
I have no doubt about it. So how can brands adapt to some phenomenal technology like this?
Gosh, I think this is a big struggle for most brands. I think, Rohan, brands Web3 Marketing Association, the reason we set that up is if you take a step back to the days of Web 2, CMOs like me were asleep at the wheel, right? We just didn't know what the hell was happening, right? We just had no idea. We were all happy to go to Cannes or wherever else and SXSW and, be rent a crowd and clap for, Web 2 platforms when they launch stuff and, and then, yeah, we were all happy, right? Hey, we were all clapping and hey, we were all happy to see, hey, look, somebody is doing a campaign and we got invited to something and blah, blah, blah. But eventually, if you look at where the internet is right now, it's not a happy place, right? It's not a place it's not the internet we all want. It's full of, bad actors. It is even all the issues that social media has in terms of stalking, bullying, harassment, all of those things. There's literally no control, right, on all of these platforms. And I do feel sorry for Mark Zuckerberg, right? It's a 3.5 billion user community that he has, which are probably in small pockets. It's so hard for any organization even to manage like 200,000 of their employees, right? let alone somebody managing a 3.5 billion people community. He just can't
I
do
mean,
anything, right?
If you want to manage the community, that's a different thing. But if you want to manage it and generate profits out of it, then obviously
correct.
there's certain things that you won't do because it's not profitable for you.
Exactly, and the pressure is on. It is a publicly listed company. There is investor pressure. There is all sorts of stuff. There is regulatory pressure. There's pressure from governments, and the question around social media being used for all sorts of stuff, including there are closed groups which go unmoderated. There could be bad actors in there. All sorts of stuff, right? So this is nearly impossible. It's an impossible task to manage the whole thing. So I can see why Facebook became Meta, and they didn't have a choice but to take that leap, right? I think the fascinating piece around this is going to be, can CMOs understand what is going on? Can marketers understand what's going on? Do they have the roadmap, the learning roadmap to really learn what's going on and have a seat at the table to, a great marketer, right, will be a customer protection expert. They will think of customer journeys. They will think of doing doing things in the right way, so that customers are not exploited. And that's what differentiates between shit marketers and great marketers, right? I think that's the big gap at this point in time, and that's what we're trying to fill, to say, how can we bring more and more marketers along on this journey? Can we explain to them what the hell this is? Why should a blockchain program be mandatory for somebody who's starting career in marketing, right? How can you not, right? So otherwise, you're going to have another generation of the internet where the marketing guys didn't participate and the technologists took it away, and then we will land up in the same place with full of bad actors, as we are seeing from the last 2 weeks.
Definitely. I mean, currently, some of the pain points I've seen people facing is, a lot of marketing has been rendered down to controlling Facebook and Google dashboards.
Exactly.
And the storytelling aspect has completely been negated, and the design and the look and feel of it is really downgraded over the past few years, because at the core, they're not marketeers. They're basically people running dashboards.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Storytelling sort of taken like a backseat.
You're spot on. And at the heart of great storytelling is true customer understanding, truly unpacking insights, really figuring out, right? Really figuring out what is the problem in the customer's life you're solving as a brand. And great brands at great times can provide so much hope, right? And especially now when the markets are tumultuous, when things are all over RE, I think great brands can stand up there and say, hey, there is positivity, there is optimism. Let's work together to figure out how we can fulfill things in your life. I think that art and that science of marketing is getting lost because you're right, it's getting reductive to some programmatic media, which feels like stalking, right? And then people are just putting, in the name of dynamic creative optimization, chucking in the components, and the AI is pushing ads, whether it's sensible, senseless, etc. No one knows. And the large part of marketing is going into this, which is scary, right?
Definitely, it is. So just on that particular note, NFTs have a lot to offer marketing. Web3 has a lot to offer marketing. People are trying to get to understand this. But what I basically want to focus on right now is AR and VR. Is this something that's being underutilized? Because I think in the current generation of technology and handsets that we have, these are capable of handling a lot that could not have been done 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Yeah. So would AR and VR be a great onboarding point for a lot of brands to enter, breaking the clutter, making better store experiences, better virtual experiences?
There could be, right? I think there are probably three things that need to happen for AR and VR to become mainstream, right? The first thing is the devices need to become cheaper in some way. So the hardware has to go through that, just like what happened to mobile phones. Hardware has to go through that. And it'll come only when there is scale and there are enough players producing good quality stuff, right? So at some point in time, everyone will get involved, and it's not just going to be Oculus and something that Apple is going to come up with. I think the Chinese will come up with some stuff, the Koreans will come up with some stuff, the Indians will come up with some stuff, and eventually you will see an explosion of and eventual consolidation, right? So similar to what happened to handsets. The second thing that needs to happen is speeds, internet speeds. For us, I don't think it's a 5G play. It's probably a 7G play. It's an 8G play. And if you really want people to be wearing some sort of a glass which has an AR filter on it, it has to be always on. It needs to be always connected. It needs to be super fast. It needs to be pinging back and forth. And I think the ability for it to get to, so I think it's 15, 20 years away, because 5G can't take that kind of load, right? That's the second thing.
You know, I was so impressed with whatever I saw in Dubai during GITEX and some of the other events that I attended. But at the end of the day, if your data is going to be 50 dirhams per GB, you're not going to get to the metaverse anytime soon.
Exactly, right? So that needs to get solved. And there is still a huge swathes of population who still don't have basic internet, right? They don't even have a dial-up, right? So the world is still not covered. So we will go through in a different batches, right? But I think that so connectivity needs to happen. And the third one is, I think customer protection needs to happen. And some sort of governance needs to happen, right? Because what is likely to happen is very similar to what happened on the internet. If you just let things go by, I would worry about giving a VR goggle and sending my kid into some space without any kind of legal recourse to bad actors and stuff like that. I think customer protection needs to happen, right? These three things are probably the three key building blocks of mass adoption of VR, in my view.
Definitely. And obviously, you know, with the kind of bottlenecks that you proposed, it's only applicable at this point in time at some niche segments. So, you know, broadly speaking, do you have any faith in certain categories that will lead the way in Web3 and the metaverse?
See, so here is the thing, right? The thing that I despise the most is doing brand experience for the sake of it, right? The brand experience has to connect into the business model. This is why I talk about the 3 Cs. And I think I'll tell you why the 3 Cs are important, right? The first C is community. Currently, most brands see people who use their products as customers or consumers. I hate the word consumers, right? Somebody's consuming like nonstop, right? So they say consumer or consumer.
You're from pharma, you should be used to it.
Right? With consuming stuff, right? So I think the leap from consumer to community is a big one. And someone said the direction in which the chairs are placed is what differentiates between audience versus a community. You know, the people who are listening to all of this is an audience, right? If it's a community, then the chairs are going to be placed in a circle. If it's an audience, then it's just 2 of us talking to 100 people. So how big can the community get to? How does the community participate? What are the things that the community will bring to the table, and how the community's views are taken is the first piece that brands need to think through, right? The second thing that they need to think through is creativity, because I think user-generated content, I mean, again, I look back and I've done lots of UGC campaigns, right? And it's sort of in social media, but the creators of UGC actually get not enough value out of that user-generated campaign in the value chain. They are relegated, right?
Very underrated.
Completely underrated, right? And they create some amazing stuff. There's so much creativity in this universe. Back to your point,
in fact, they might have a few better insights on your brand than you do.
Totally, exactly, right? And these are people who love your brand and who probably want to engage in your brand, and they're relegated to a random campaign at some random point. And I think the ability to connect these creators and to be able to incentivize these creators and for them to have a skin in the game in some way, and for them to be part of that business model is the second thing. And the third one is, and it's not an integrating Web3 and integrating all of this AR, VR into the business model. My favorite one is, I think one of the Norwegian lift companies are using VR to teach service mechanics how to put a lift to, break open a lift and put it together and repair it.
Oh yeah, exploded views and all that stuff.
Exactly,
so
right?
VR application for these kind of industries is pretty high.
Incredible. And we never think of it in that way, right? We very quickly get to, hey, how can a brand engage? And somebody's walking through the space in Decentraland. It's quite dull. Okay. I mean, I don't know if you walk through.
And invasive.
Oh gosh, man, it's terrible, right?
Highly invasive. Yeah.
right? So if you think about the applications of VR in spaces like those, which is exploded view, which is going to, I mean, you can protect, their limbs. You can protect. You can. If there's a novice guy who's trying to sort of repair a lift, if he's done it 5 times in the VR environment and then he goes and does it in the real environment, he's at least 3 steps ahead of where he would have been if he went in straight.
I mean, that's there, but one of the VR companies that I frequently work with as a BDM guy sometimes. So these guys develop softwares where untrained people can actually stand in front of machines and be guided by VR. So this is the screw they open, this is what they do, this is what they do. So that actually, has applications for high tension electricity wires, for oil pipelines, where engineers with, decades of experience can be replaced by people with not as hands-on as they would like to be. So particularly for emergency situations, that might be the case.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So if you think about the application, therefore, when I say brands, I mean organizations as a whole. So the CTO can think about it. The R&D guys can think about using VR. It shouldn't be relegated to the CMO to think about some fluffy marketing, right? Can these technologies go through your
use case based?
Right? So which is why the commercial model in itself is important, and bringing that holistic view of how can this plug into the broader organization. I think people are not thinking through yet, right? Now it's all very, hey, let's have have your avatar, we'll dress up your avatar with whatever branded shoes. So yeah, fine.
It's basic.
Yeah, it's very basic. So let's take another view. Okay, let's take the consumer view of this. I don't know if you watch Ready Player One. It's one of my favorite movies.
That's almost like a Bible, man.
Right, it's Bible, right? So if you think about it, so he says, the protagonist in that says, he says people come to the oasis to do what they want to do, but they stay for who they can be.
Who they can be, yeah.
Right? It's the whole leap into, can Web3, can AR, VR augment our identities?
I just want to butt in over there on your point. So what happens is a few people actually have complaints that, it's the graphics aren't good enough. I don't look like myself. I'm like, bro, if you can be in a virtual environment, you could be anyone. Like, if once you realize that, then you would not want to look like yourself. Correct. Even if you're like a model or whatever, you'd still want to express yourself in ways that's not physically possible at this point in time.
Correct. And I want to build on that, right? And also the same thing goes for spaces. When brands are going and building spaces in the metaverse, so to speak, or one of the metaverses, so to speak, why are they constraining themselves to building the branch that looks like a branch, right? I mean, there's no constraint. There is no physical, there is no constraint of gravity. There's no constraint.
Could be fluid, yeah.
It could be anything. It could be amoebic. It can change by the minute. Anything can happen because you can create it. The ability for brands to think this through in terms of what it can be and how can you help augment your identity of people in your community is such a fascinating.
I think that's one of our actionable insights. What these agencies need right now is a different generation of ideators.
That's right. That's correct.
They might as well go ahead and hire like 5 15-year-olds as a board member, and then have creative heads work with them on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, just to get different ideas and clutter breaking ideas at this point.
And people who are native to the environment, right? And that's what you need, right? And maybe I'll challenge you a little bit on the 15-year-old thing, right? So I'll tell you the big moment of epiphany for me was I did not feel like a digital native when digital happened, because I didn't have access. I didn't have the money to buy good computers. I didn't have access to good internet. I did IRC chat and ICQ and whatever else. And,
man, that's exposing your age now.
Fuck, okay, yeah.
IRC chat is
right. So did that, right? So I didn't feel like a digital native. I didn't feel like a mobile native. But you know what? I feel like a Web3 native. So there is the ability for Web3 to truly be, can we have the next generation of the internet to truly be inclusive, to truly be diverse, to truly not be ageist or classist or anything else, and truly bring people who are creators all together is where I'm hoping this would get to, right? I do feel like a native, right? Which I feel great to be a native. I love it. I love it when I mean, Discord is a zoo, right? But in the communities that I am in, when I'm engaging with some of these
that's
people.
That's a great insight. Yeah. Discord's a zoo, man. It's a bloody circus. Yeah.
But I go there and I'm like, wow, I get excited by this, right? I get excited by this. So I think that's the internet we all want Web3 to become, right?
So now, mid-journey, we can take actual photographs, feed it into it, and then prompt certain things on top of your photograph itself. So we were at a karaoke bar day before yesterday, and we took photos of some random people there, and I think, prompted mushroom karaoke, and it gave this whole psychedelic design with these guys in the image. So now, if tomorrow Instagram comes up with an AI filter, where after you've taken a photo, you can maybe do an AI prompt. It's happening. It's next 6 months. I'm sure we'll get this filter there. But the thing is, if you actually want to live the life that you saw on your screen that you prompted for yourself, it's possible in the metaverse. Totally. Because you can get 3D renditions of that environment, and you can actually walk around there, show your friends, interact with it. It's quite dystopian, but at the same time, it's quite mind-blowing at the same.
It is so let's talk about this dystopian thing, right? So the couple of thoughts that come to my mind that I probably want to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is eventually there will be a digital avatar of you who you can be whatever you want to be. We established that. Who can be interoperable between metaverses, hopefully, different chains, etc., which will be really cool. And then who will be doing things on your behalf, maybe when you're asleep, right? And doing things, playing a game, coming back, collecting stuff, doing some stuff, right? It could get there. I'm just trying to figure out what's a sci-fi sort of future.
Yeah, I mean, the AI can map you and then figure out what you might do at this point in time. And
exactly.
Does do that. Yeah.
Right. So imagine on one hand, so you created this extra persona of yourself, which is an extension of your identity, and which is a digital version of your identity used there. That's one point. So let's go that far into the future, and that's what that could happen. The second fascinating thing for me, Rohan, is I tweeted the other day saying, what is the Turing test equivalent for the metaverse? Okay, so here is the question. Okay, let's humor me for a minute. Okay, Turing test essentially is a test where at what point in time we will not be able to differentiate a robot from a human. Okay, and if a robot passes the Turing test, it becomes
that's already happened, I guess.
Right? Not really.
People, some people might not be able to differentiate between an AI chatbot and the real person on the other side.
General chat AI is not yet there, right? 3 questions in, it's very hard, right? So I've done a lot of research into this space. So, but Turing test is specifically for robotics, okay? Proper robotics, right? Like 3-dimensional robots.
It's got to be tangible.
Okay. But now let's take this into the future, 50 years down the line. You're in your VR environment. It is so real, right? With your bodysuit, whatever else that you are, that you can't differentiate what is the metaverse and what is real world. How do you test that?
So, again, Suresh, over there, it's now. That's happening now. So Vario headsets. Yeah. Those things are like $8,000 per headset. Yeah. They're the cost of 20 quests with annual memberships. So these headsets in green room environments or particular environments which are conducive for pass-through, you can actually have that experience. You won't be able to figure out whether you're talking to a real person or a meta human, because they both look so freaking real in that environment.
It's spooky, right?
It's just a matter of getting it cheaper.
Yeah, maybe just about mass adoption. And if you can connect it to bodysuits, if you can feel gravity in that space, for example, if you can feel a touch, if you can feel a handshake,
haptic feedback
stuff, right? If you can if you can feel a slap, then you're in, right? That's it. That is the true metaverse that it will get to, and maybe we need to then figure out.
So I'm going to share like a video with you on your WhatsApp. I've got you on WhatsApp now. So this guy on YouTube, he's called 𝗕𝗿𝗁𝗃𝗃. So he actually went into the Vario headquarters and he explored 3 different rooms that they have. They've got like a white room, they've got a green room, and then they've got a separate room where they test out metahumans. So, I mean, once you watch that, you'll realize that Ready Player One for anyone with $20,000 to $25,000 to spare is literally now. For everyone else to get there for the cost of less than an iPhone might be 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
But for people with money, it's literally there now. Like these Tesla suits are, I think, $15,000 a pop at this point in time, and they have like sensors everywhere.
It's going to be fascinating when that happens, right? I think, and mass adoption of that. Imagine that everyone gets it, and it could be. And so this whole dystopian sci-fi thing, I'm slightly also concerned about, because all sci-fi movies have to show dystopian worlds, because utopian worlds, all nice things, butterflies, everything else, waterfalls, streams,
you
is
don't
not
need
going to
this
work.
then.
No, yeah, nobody's going to buy it. Nobody is going to watch the movie, right? You have to create.
No, as in a utopian world, you might not need the metaverse.
Yeah, you're correct, exactly. So this whole idea of let's. I mean, bad news always sells, right? A sort of a terrible headline always
I think
sells.
just on that note, the first 10 minutes of Ready Player One with the backing voice, where they're explaining what the world is, that 10 minutes itself is literally where we're heading towards.
It's a lesson. It's a lesson in itself, right? I think sci-fi always leads, and I think so going back to your question about metaverse and stuff, I think this extension of our identity we haven't figured out the infinite possibilities of extending our digital identities.
Definitely. And I think we went quite a bit on a tangent over there. Original question about what categories of brands can immediately come on board. So I'll quickly tell you what I had in my mind there.
Go on.
I think liquor brands is a set of brands that I really look forward to working with, because I honestly feel that these guys have a world of new possibilities to explore before any regulations set in at this point in time. So a lot of development, a lot of R&D can be done if these guys agree to come on board and they partake. Maybe they have like a line of thinking that people at Nike do.
Yeah, experiences, right? I mean, so the question that I would ask is, how can they embed AR, VR, XR, blockchain into their existing value chain? Right?
Exactly. So they have to tie up to physical life. It can't be virtually native. Yeah.
Correct. So that's where I push for this, and that's where going back to my Starbucks example.
I think that's the Nike thing also, no? Because it's got such great brand value, it's got physical presence and all that. So at some point in time, there is a physical connect with it.
Correct. Totally agree. And I think where they will get to, and currently you can't really do it, is can you create, verification using some sort of an NFC chip inside a physical object, or of some sorts, which can be then the verified certificate, which is on a distributed ledger somewhere, and then that there's a smart contract written on the back of it, which is every time you sell a collectible shoe in real life, then you're actually selling it, and you can actually verify provenance. You can verify origin.
That's the crazy part right there, because none of these brands before Web3 came into place had any access to secondary sales. Now they do.
That's right. Exactly, right. So they can look at, they can see the market, they can see transparency. It takes out intermediaries. It keeps your community. Everybody who owns a Nike shoe, you will know. Even if it's a secondary sale of a collectible Nike shoe, you will know. All of that stuff. The other interesting thing could be, token gating, right? So if you're a Air Jordan owner, you hold an NFT along with it, and then NFT allows you to join hands with all of the Air Jordan, special edition community around the world. Suddenly you have your tribe who are everywhere.
I mean, you have your special privileges along with that NFT.
Exactly.
That's basically the game, I guess.
Exactly. So that's the kind of stuff. I think those are the kind of brands who will be able to imagine community creation are the ones that will win in the space.
I mean, one of my favorite NFT collections I always talk about, I mentioned on the podcast before as well, is the 𝗕𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃
Matt, I own one.
Brilliant.
I love my 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. I love the fact that they keep. I mean, I love the voting that they did. They engage the community on the comic book voting. I love the fact that they dropped.
So this is what I want to know. What are they like? What do you get in return that I can't get access to at all? I think our users would love to know about that.
So 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, right? Firstly, 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 tied up with Palm Studios, and they created their own marketplace, right? So instead of going to OpenSea or whatever else, and eventually I think second they'll probably get to some sort of.
That's again, I'm butting in there. Any brands listening out, you need your own marketplaces. You can't be dependent on other people.
I agree with you, right? So the second one is they could have picked anything, but they went with 𝗕𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗶. Batman franchise is one of the best franchises ever. It's probably the only franchise that made it well in the movies. I think all of the Superman series, all of the series complete flop. I think Wonder Woman did better than Superman, but I think Batman has some serious following, right? I think
everyone loves Batman.
Yeah, exactly, right? So and that's probably the only competition DC have to Marvel. So when they did the Batman drop, I bought one right at the early days, maybe 6, 7. This is not investment advice, right? So I just want to say that don't go just because I say it. Do your own.
I think you even bought that because I can clearly see you might be a fan also, because you need access to all these things.
Exactly, right? So you land up, and then they engage me every week. I would get an email saying, we are doing a comic right now. What suit should Batman wear? So if you're an NFT holder, you're able to vote in those. So they did the whole series of voting into the comic. Then they dropped a full comic to all the NFT holders, right? They dropped Wonder Woman comic 1 to all NFT holders. Then they dropped spaces. They dropped land equivalent to NFT holders. So they're slowly building their community, right? Then they had a game. I didn't have time to engage in the game, but people who engaged in the game in the community, I'm on the Discord, they all got another drop. So they're slowly building the community, and they're trying to figure out who are the super fans who can actually be engaged in development of the product. So this is product development, right? They are doing research on the go. And with
once you have a community, it will serve you in n number of ways.
Completely, right? And then there is secondary market for it based on traits, this, that, all of that stuff. But essentially they're using it in every angle possible for market research, for token gating, for keeping the community connected, for product development, all of that stuff. And it is just phenomenal what DC has been doing.
I think when they launched it, they launched it at around $200 per 𝗕𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃.
$150 US.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, for me, I love Batman, but I'm not a comic book geek by any sense of the word. So for me, the NFT might be useless, but for millions of fans across the world, this is something they'll literally go head over heels for, like the Comic-Con crowd. They would love this, and giving them premium access to films, events, material, content. It's insane.
This is it. I think they're experimenting. They've done a great job. They've done a great job of it. Because see, here's the thing, Rohan. They have an existing business with a clear product market fit. Now they're utilizing Web3 for community building, creator economy, content creation, insights, all of that stuff. Bolting it on versus there are NFT guys who come up and say, hey, we have an NFT collection, we have generated AI, blah, blah, blah. Then we will figure out what the utility is.
Yeah. That's,
I think that's
for BYAC people.
I know. But I think there's only so much one can play on the FOMO, right? I think after a point in time, one needs to figure out what is real world application of this stuff.
So I think Justin Bieber had bought something for $250,000 or some millions of dollars, and now it's worth like $69,000. So people
but listen, he can afford to, right? He can afford to, but not many people can lose that kind of money. So which is where this is scary. Which is where there's no customer protection, right? There is no capital guarantee, no nothing. And all of these celebrities going and shilling this stuff is terrible, right? And then some poor guy who doesn't know what it is lands up buying some stuff and burning their money, right? I think this kind of stuff, in the real world, no celebrity can just go and say, hey, this capsule helps you lose weight, go and get it, right? FDA will come after them, right? Right, so that kind of stuff, there is protection there, right? Because there is in this NFT world, because it is still all nascent and early days, there's no real customer protection, which is quite scary.
Definitely, man. It's been amazing discussing all these points with you. Briefly in between, you mentioned about the Web3 Marketing Association. Can you tell us exactly what the Web3 Marketing Association is? Why did you guys set this up?
Sure. Hey, it was just, this was me, dabbling in crypto, dabbling in NFT, this, that, and whatnot. And then maybe this was Christmas of 2020. I met some fellow CMOs, And I asked them, what are you doing with Web3? And they were like, what is Web3? And I was like, holy smokes, here we go again. We're going to go through the same thing as Web2. The technologies are going to take over. And then marketing, I mean, everybody is going to focus on the $1 trillion opportunity.
On the dashboards.
On the dashboards. We've got to get involved in some way. And in many ways, I started talking to various people over the next year. By September of last year, I found 3 other co-founders. One guy, I think you know 𝗕𝗿.
Yes.
𝗕𝗿 is the original blockchain guru.
He's quite an entrepreneur,
Super duper entrepreneur, setting up he's actually building NFT marketplaces, right? At this point in time, he's building one for us as well, for Web3 Marketing Association, which is fabulous. He came on board as a co-founder. 𝗕𝗿𝗍𝗍, who sold his company 𝗕𝗿𝗍 for WPP for many $1 million, and then now he got into fintech. He came on board, and the 4th co-founder is 𝗕𝗿𝗍𝗍. 𝗕𝗿 is the chief strategy officer of a company called FramePlay. They do in-game advertising SDK. So they work with Unity and everyone else to figure out what should be the advertising SDK for inside games. It's insane what she's doing. She came on board.
I can imagine.
Then I
mean, Call of Duty doesn't stop when you go to sleep,
Totally. So she built that, and then she's building that, and she's this is a multi-billion-dollar business. It's become.
And I mean, when you're building, tech products like that with advertiser insights, it's a different beast altogether.
A different beast, and it's a different high. It's a different energy. The kind of stuff that you can disrupt is huge. So the 4 of us got together, and then we brought on board more people, and now we are slowly bringing on board brands. We do IRL events. We've had Hong Kong and Dubai so far. We probably will do Singapore and the US soon. We are bringing on board CMOs. We are bringing on board, we've set up our first Metaverse committee. We are members of the Metaverse Council, Metaverse Standards Council, which is great. And then we are going to help support them in terms of setting up customer protection, IP standards, things like those. So we're going to do the first research we will do is we will do a CMO research to show exactly where the gap is. What do CMOs think now and what they should be thinking in the future, and how can we do this together? So we've had a lot of interest, people signing up, people coming for our events. We are still in beta stage. We haven't formally launched yet. We do some, we use the platform. We have 2,500 plus followers. Most of them are senior marketers. And we have conversations with them about, and we have podcasts as well.
I know. I do listen to that quite frequently. The 4 of you.
Oh, thank you for that. And I think speaking with other CMOs, speaking with other Web3 aficionados, speaking with people who are building stuff is crucial for us. And we try to solve for that information asymmetry, right? How can we bring more information to more CMOs so that they can take a leap? And that's our mission.
So in your IRL meetups, what kind of people are you looking should be attending?
I mean, anyone who's interested in Web3 and marketing. That's it.
That's it. Bottom line.
Everyone comes, right? And we've had people from media agencies to VR companies to blockchain experts to crypto exchanges to we've had all sorts of people come.
Man,
right?
Trust me, like a lot of these people have issues in community handling and all that, where they need some old school thought processes coming in.
Exactly.
Currently, at a personal level, I'm also trying to organize some events in Bangalore around the Metaverse, and the whole idea is to connect builders and artists, because right now I understand a lot of people might be working with Unity developers, but when your visual aspect is literally the only thing that you have, trust me, you need artists working on those aspects and not a team of developers, because that's all you have. Like, you can't skim on spending on that particular aspect. So
agreed.
Hopefully, let's see where this goes. Yeah.
Agreed. Amazing.
Definitely. Suresh, thanks for giving us your Saturday evening, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Soon, man.
Thank you.
And I'd be really looking forward to attend one of these IRL meetups. Most probably I'll make it to one of your Dubai breakfasts.
That'll be brilliant.
They're ahead. Yes.
That will be brilliant. Really thanks for having me. Really enjoyed this conversation. Nice to talk to like-minded people, with a passion to pushing the industry forward, right? So keep on doing your good work. Best of luck for your podcast.
Community, man. It's all about helping each other at this point.
Totally. Best of luck to Blockchain Council. All right. Stay in touch.
Cheers.
Dude.
Thanks a lot,
Right.
Suresh. Peace out.
Bye.